feel shamed or ashamed? Hello friends, hope you're all keeping happy and healthy. Welcome to Granny's GodPod number 44, continuing our look at non-Western honour-shame culture. This time in the New Testament. Let's go. The introspective conscience of Westerners is alien to the biblical authors, and we use the words honour and shame differently. In the non-Western honour-shame culture, it is not shame itself that is negative, but shaming. How does this affect how we read the Bible? When we read in the New Testament that we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, 2 Corinthians 5:10, we may think it will be uncomfortable for a while, but it does not give us the same fear that Paul's first century listeners would have felt. This is because they understood it as a public honour-shame event. Paul is warning the Corinthians that although they might not feel guilty about their sins, there will come a time when they will be publicly shamed before God and everyone. Jesus also worked within this honour-shame system. Jesus' opponents understood this principle when asking questions. Public questions were contests in which if you silenced your opponent you gained honour, and the opponent lost some. If you wanted information, you asked privately, as we see with Nicodemus, who came to Jesus at night. He was looking for answers from Jesus, not honour. Public questions were a serious challenge, and the Jewish officials were shamed every time Jesus answered them. They became more and more irritated at losing face, and more desperate to restore their honour. We see the climax in Matthew's account of Jesus being asked whether the imperial tax should be paid to Caesar or not. The chief priests and elders came to Jesus in the temple courts where he was teaching. This was the most important public place for challenging preachers and rabbis in debate. After Jesus speaks, Matthew tells us no one could say anything in reply, and after that no one dared to ask any more questions. Matthew 22:46. This comment probably doesn't mean very much to us until we realise that the priests dare not risk further loss of face for fear of losing their power and position. Every time Jesus won the public honour-shame game, the more the Jewish leadership felt the need to silence him. And Matthew is telling us the Jews had reached the end of their tether. They needed to publicly disgrace Jesus to retrieve their honour. And the only way they could see to do that was to have him executed as a criminal. Protecting or regaining honour is serious stuff. Even today we hear of honour killings, and a back alley stabbing would not retrieve the priest's honour. After his arrest, Jesus is brought before Caiaphas the high priest. He asks Jesus who he is, and using imagery from the book of Daniel, Jesus says, "You will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Father and coming with the clouds of heaven." Mark 14:62. To Caiaphas, a Levite descendant of Moses' brother Aaron, it was blasphemy for a man to claim equality with God. And when a priest heard blasphemy from an Israelite, he was obliged to tear his clothes. So Caiaphas tore his mantle, an outer garment, in a demonstration of his zeal for the honour and glory of God, and his indignation at hearing this supposed blasphemy. Pilate, however, initially found Jesus not guilty of the Jews' charges of sedition. So, in an effort to appease the Jews, he had Jesus flogged and presented him dressed in purple with a crown of thorns. He says, "Behold the man," mocking the Jews with this beaten and bloodied spectacle of their king. Needless to say, the Jews were not satisfied and threatened Pilate with not being a friend of Caesar's if he released Jesus. Although Jesus knew his greater purpose, the crucifixion was an act of shaming, with passers-by wagging their heads and the priests and scribes mocking him. Was Pilate mocking the Jews too when he wrote on the cross, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews"? It seems the Jews may have been publicly humiliated by the Romans in trying to retrieve their honour through Jesus' death. If we ignore this honour-shame society, we can miss some nuances in the Bible stories. For instance, Luke illustrates the need for humility, saying we shouldn't assume to take the place of honour at a wedding banquet because someone more distinguished may have been invited. And to an Easterner, it would be absolutely shaming in front of all the guests if you had to give up your seat and find a lesser place. This happened to me once years ago, when a boyfriend and I had been invited to a meal with lots of people, and the only two remaining seats together were next to the top table. We innocently made a move towards those, but were quickly told we couldn't sit there, those seats were reserved, and then other guests kindly moved places so that we could sit together. Named seating saves this sort of embarrassment, and it was embarrassing, even in Western culture. The Bible was written by Middle Eastern writers steeped in an honour-based culture, and we can look out for it anywhere the word worthy is used. We might also notice where the conversation or event was taking place. If it is outside, it is quite likely that the shame culture is in play. Think of the story of Ruth and Boaz, for example. And Peter was shamed after denying Jesus 3 times, because the cock crowed and Jesus looked at him. So it was no longer a private act that only Peter knew about. Incidentally, though, he is redeemed in John 21:15. As in the previous GodPod, information here comes mainly from Messrs. Richards and O'Brien and their book Misreading Scripture with Western Eyes. Well, that's all for this time, people. Do take care and please subscribe. It is free and helps to promote the channel. Thank you. Later.